Hi, it's Panda Movies here. Today, I'm going to explain the movie called Marooned. Warning, there are spoilers ahead. Enjoy the video. The first crew of an experimental space station on an extended term trip is made up of 3 US astronauts. Commander Jim Pruett, Buzz Lloyd, and Clayton Stoney Stone. Lloyd begins exhibiting erratic and substandard performance about 60 days into a planned 90-day mission, and NASA management decides to end the mission early. The main engine on the Apollo spacecraft Ironman One fails while it is oriented for retrofire. Ironman does not have enough fuel to employ the reaction control system as a backup to commence atmospheric entry, according to mission control. There isn't enough petrol to return to the station and wait for help. The team has effectively become stranded in space. NASA is debating whether a rescue flight will be able to reach the astronauts before their oxygen runs out in 2 days. At Kennedy Space Center in Florida, there are no backup launch vehicles or rescue systems, and NASA Administrator Charles Keith opposes using an experimental US rocket. The XRV is an Air Force lifting body that would be launched on a Titan Ike booster rocket. Neither the spacecraft nor the booster are man-rated, and there isn't enough time to put together a new crewed NASA mission. Hundreds of hours of preparation, assembly, and testing would be required, even though a Titan Ike is already on its way to nearby Cape Canaveral Air Force Station for an already scheduled Air Force launch. NASA's chief astronaut, Ted Doherty, opposes Keith and demands that something be done, claiming that the majority of time-consuming preparation items can be eliminated. The president agrees with Doherty and informs Keith that if a rescue mission is not attempted, public support for the crewed space program will dwindle. "Whatever you need, you've got it," the president says Keith, adding that money isn't an issue. Keith accepts the decision despite his initial reluctance and works tirelessly on the rescue mission. Doherty declares himself to be the pilot. While the wives of the astronauts worry about their husbands' futures, all standard checklist procedures are skipped in order to prepare the XRV for launch. The wives are taken to the control room and given the opportunity to talk with their husbands. However, this only adds to Lloyd's already disturbed state. As the mission's launch date approaches, a hurricane bearing down on the launch area threatens to derail it. High winds lead the mission to be scrubbed just minutes before launch. Keith, the launch director, admits angrily that the rescue attempt is now impossible. However, a weather technician informs Keith that the storm's eye will pass over the Cape 90 minutes later during a new launch window, allowing a launch with Doherty aboard in time to reach the ship and save at least some of the crew. As expected, the hurricane's eye passes over the Cape and the launch takes place just as the storm winds pick up. However, until Doherty arrives, there is insufficient oxygen for all 3 astronauts to survive. There may be enough for 2, forcing you to make a previously unthinkable decision. Pruett and his team then discuss their options. Stone argues that if they take sleeping tablets or otherwise reduce their oxygen use, they will be able to survive. Pruett counters that this is unlikely to save enough oxygen to be successful. Lloyd, who is upset, offers to go because he is taking up most of the oxygen anyway, but Pruett refuses. He puts everyone in their spacesuits and exits the spacecraft, purportedly to try to repair the ship, despite the fact that this option has been repeatedly condemned as hopeless and a waste of oxygen. Lloyd learns what Pruett is plotting as he exits the hatch and tries to pursue him, despite the fact that he is tethered to the spacecraft by his umbilicals. Lloyd is restrained by Stone, and they both keep an eye on Pruett from the hatch. Pruett's spacesuit is ripped open by a large gash caused by a metal protrusion, and there is a hiss of air. Pruett drifts away from the ship, unable to stop the leak and rapidly losing consciousness as Lloyd and Stone watch. Stone takes command now that Pruett is gone and sedates Lloyd to near unconsciousness. The Voskhod spacecraft emerges out of nowhere and its cosmonaut makes contact. Because the Soviet ship is too small to take extra people and lacks the necessary equipment to dock with the Apollo, he can only give oxygen. Stone and Lloyd, who have lost consciousness due to oxygen deprivation, are unable to understand the cosmonaut's gestures or follow Keith's instructions from Houston. Lloyd floats away from the ship as he emerges from the hatch. In the XRV, Doherty arrives and begins a spacewalk to fetch the crew. The Soviet cosmonaut casts a light on Lloyd as he drifts away from the Apollo. Doherty uses a maneuvering pack to recover him. The cosmonaut boards the Apollo and straps an ill-fitting oxygen tank to Stone's suit. Stone begins to regain awareness as Doherty arrives with Lloyd in tow, thanks to the increased oxygen flow. The two surviving and still dazed Ironman astronauts are transferred into the rescue ship by Doherty and the cosmonaut, who exchange thumbs-up gestures. The NASA crew shouts in applause as Doherty reports the crew transfer to Houston. Both the Soviet ship and the XRV shoot retrofire to return to Earth after their separation, and the final shot fades out with a view of the abandoned Ironman One adrift in orbit.